got an incredible guest here today. She is a celebrity stylist. She has an incredible rags to riches story, and I am thrilled and honored to be in her presence with a great bottle of wine I took from a Sacramento Airbnb. So Joey Tierney, did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Happy to be here.
Tell me everything about you. I want to start from the beginning. So you are a celebrity stylist and you have toured with Britney Spears to some of the top bands ever invented. Where did you begin?
Where did I begin my career?
Yes.
Okay, it's an ironically odd beginning. I began actually touring with Britney Spears.
And how did you actually get that gig, though? Like, where are you from? Let's start with that.
Okay, I'm from Orange County. I grew up in Costa Mesa. Well, I graduated from Costa Mesa High School. I very, very, very quickly realized I wanted to move to LA. And I moved to LA. I was working as a receptionist in it's a editing bay, and I was literally doing stand-up comedy. I met a girl, and she was like, "Oh, I'm a stylist." I was like, "What is a stylist?" And basically 3 months later, I was on tour with Britney Spears.
So that's obviously not normal. That's
It's not normal. I know, it feels weird to even say.
That's not how it usually goes. But
Right.
I feel like luck is a huge part of being an entrepreneur and being successful, getting in with the right people, but also having a certain passion for whatever industry you're looking to get into. So when did you know? I know you said that you were doing stand-up comedy, which is what you told me off the air prior to us starting filming. But when did you know that you wanted to even get into fashion?
I didn't grow up thinking to myself, oh, I think I'm going to be a fashion stylist, or I think I'm going to have this like presence in the fashion industry. But once I actually started touring with Britney, we wake up in a different city every day. We have an entire sewing team with us. And with Britney specifically on that tour, we had 8 dancers, 16 costume changes, and we're doing like live shows 5 days a week. So every morning, once we worked out all the details that needed to be done to reset each show, I would have free time with the sewers. And what I realized very quickly is that I loved designing. Mind you, because I didn't go to fashion school, I didn't know that I actually needed a pattern. So although I did take the note that I love designing, when I got off the road after, 3.5 years, I thought I'd put together a little line. Obviously, I had the attention of most PR people in the business that were savvy. Just obviously finishing a tour with Britney Spears, she was the biggest star in the world. So it was like at my fingertips what was possible. And I, at that time, was dating a singer-songwriter artist. And I thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take his artwork and I'm going to silk screen it onto fabric and I'm going to make clothing. So that's what I did. I made a piece of clothing with 0 patterns, but I made several pieces. And when I booked my ticket to New York to take these meetings, I'd sit with a few different buyers, and they were like, yeah, I'd like to order like 15 of these, or I don't know the exact number, but it was a long time ago, but I was like, oh no, there's just one. And they were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because that's how naive I was. I just didn't understand, and I was just literally working off the art of loving to create clothing, or pieces or whatever.
So to back up, because your story is so amazing for all of you guys listening, she's really fascinating and phenomenal. So you're originally from Orange County, California, which is pretty much known as a pretentious, very upscale community about, I think, an hour and a half from like West Hollywood,
pretty much.
LA. And that's where you were born and raised, correct?
Yeah.
And what was it like for you growing up there? Tell me about what it was like growing up in that area.
So I wasn't raised traditionally. I, at 6 years old, was put into a children's home called Orangewood. At that time, it was called Albert Sitton Home. But I was 6 years old, and until I was 18, I was basically in and out of it's. When you're in the system, it's called when you're in the system. So I was part of the system, which is children's homes, and it's not a lot of people associate it to like juvenile hall, but it's not juvenile hall. It's actually like a program, like a facility that has created this wonderful environment for kids that just don't have parents that are capable of taking care of their children. So, and I don't mean just financially, I'm speaking mentally as well. Do you know what I mean? Just all together. Like they just actually are just not ready to have kids. And other more severe situations as well. But I was fortunate enough to be put into Orangewood, and I was in and out of the system. I left on my 18th birthday. So living in that environment. So I lived in Orangewood. I guess I left Orangewood when I was 13 and was finally put into, I was in and out, by the way, between 6 and 13. I spent a little moment with my biological father and lived with him, and that didn't go over well. Anyway, I left on my 18th birthday, but from 14 to 18, I was actually in a group home, which is like an emancipation home. So I was able to attend like a regular high school, and I cannot even tell you how it changed my life. Like that's where the reprogramming of like your mind and your spirit, like that's where it really happened for me, was at that particular group home.
Looking at you right now, most people probably would look at you and think you're some like well-traveled, amazing, come from a wealthy family, kind of California, blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. But it's interesting that you didn't have that background and you didn't really necessarily come from a trust fund, because I think that there's a misconception that you need to come from connections, you need to come from money to break into this industry, to become successful. But you've shown that you didn't need to do that to get into this industry. Do you think that your childhood and those experiences kind of made you more passionate for success, or that they got to you at some point?
So there is this very special moment that I had. I think I was like 11 years old, and I happened to be on the streets at that time. I was sleeping in a field actually in Huntington Beach, and I remember looking down at my outfit. Well, also being in Orange County, it's very judgmental. Like immediately, even when you're young, you can pick up on it's a very judgmental atmosphere. It's judgmental everywhere. It's judgmental in LA. It's judgmental everywhere. But I remember looking down at my outfit and being like, you know what? And by the way, I was 11 years old, and I can look at an 11-year-old girl now and be like, what the hell? I can really trip out on it myself. But I vividly remember being like, oh my God, okay, I have my Ked sneakers. I've got my blue, yellow, pink socks stacked. Like nobody's going to know what my situation is. Like I basically was able to camouflage myself via fashion to fit in with everybody. Or in my mind at that time, I felt like I needed to, right? And I guess what I realize now is that even when I had that break meeting the girl that put me on tour with Britney when I was like, I don't know, I think I might have been 23 or something, or 24, very young. And I can go back and go, you know what? Like fashion was always my forte. Like it was just always part of what I was supposed to do. And it actually put me in the fast lane of like, I just wanted to be part of high fashion. Like I remember like I've had these like blessings throughout my entire career. Like one of my very, very dear friends had a show, and in the moment and it was like a reality show, and in the moment I remember being like, well, I'm here doing this reality show that, by the way, like flew us to Miami and like put us up in this like amazing hotel, and we had the best time ever. In my head I was like, I should be shooting the cover of Vogue. Right? But I can hindsight go back and think, you know what, in that moment, I don't know, like after that episode aired, one of the girls from my group home found me on social media. I think it was like Facebook. Who knows? It could have been like what was the other one before?
MySpace.
It might have been MySpace. I don't know, but I feel like it may have been Facebook. I don't know. I can't really remember, but she had sent me a message, and she said, you know, I'm a huge fan of, my girlfriend is Audrina Patridge, and she was a huge fan of Audrina's. And she said, you know, I was so excited for her show to air. And when I saw the girl on the show with her, I thought, you know, she thought it was me. And she said, I knew it was you when you smiled. But she just, like, in her mind couldn't, like, put it together that somehow I'm on this show with her, you know, who she really looks up to, you know, and she admires. And in that moment, I was like, oh, you know what she had written to me was, I just want you to know that you didn't only succeed for yourself. You succeeded I was in an all-girl home, right, my group home. And she said, you succeeded for all of us in the group home. And in that moment, I was like, you know, shame on me a little bit for in that moment not living it to its fullest and, like, just loving it all the way. Because in that moment, I can remember telling myself, no, you should be shooting for Vogue, and you should be doing this, and you should be in Paris. And, you know, you just don't know. Like, God puts you exactly where you're supposed to be, exactly when you're supposed to be there, because you may think that you're just working on your own life, but your life touches so many other lives, and you just don't know whose life you're going to touch. And obviously in that moment, like, that changed. The girl that wrote me was named Veronica. Like, that gave her light and hope in that moment. Just that little, like, you know, that was just a silly moment on reality TV, but for her, she felt like her sister made it, which made her feel like she made it. It's the community of, like, you know, you go through these traumatic situations in your life, and you never know, like, where time will take you, or where your relationships take you, or you just never know, like, what are the chances that I was going to meet a girl, by the way, at a club in Orange County, and it just so happened that I had been dating the lead singer of this band, and she was dating maybe the drummer of this other band, and we happened to be at the same party in Orange County, and I recognized her name, and I was like, yo, do you know this dude that was my boyfriend? We split up at the time. And she was like, yeah. And all of a sudden, that's what the connection was. And then within 3 months, I'm touring the world. Who could have planned that? And I can remember very vividly that night, specifically this night in the field, the same night about the shoes. I remember just asking God, just saying, God, you know, just get me to a place where I'm safe. Like, if you could just get me to a safe place till I'm 18, I have so much to do. And I said, I wanted to travel the world. I didn't say, hey, God, by the way, I want to travel the world with Britney Spears. I didn't say that. In my heart, I was just like, I want to see the world. I want to travel. I want to know the world. I want to know every walk of life. You know, obviously, I was very ambitious. I was like, I want to speak like 15 languages. By the way, I'm only speaking English. I understand a little bit of French. So, you know, that's that.
Well, that in itself is quite the story, but I find that so many people that have traumatic upbringings find that I feel like if you could study, you know, 50% of kids from traumatic, or 100% of kids from traumatic upbringings, 50% of them, or even 75% would go downhill, would start using drugs, would start partying, and, you know, kind of waste their life away. And then there's the other percent that takes that experience and makes it something more beneficial, makes their life something. But it seems like you always knew, even when you were going through this time, that you wanted something more with your life.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at my childhood now, and I'm amazed that I am where I'm at. I can appreciate my process. But yeah, I think that I did always know. I didn't know like that I wanted to be a fashion stylist. That I didn't know the specifics, but I always knew that I wasn't gonna let anybody else define who I was. And you know, I'm a lover. Like, and when I love hard. Like, I love all the way. And when I fell in love with fashion and I realized that, like, I have a relationship with fashion that I could use fashion to, like, not, like, I was always just so afraid that people were going to judge me. Like, oh, or feel bad for me. Like, I never really wanted to be like, oh, I grew up in a group home and I lived in a children's home, and I just never, I don't know. I just wanted people to be like, yo, your skills and your body of work are so amazing. And I wanted them to be, I wanted their appreciation for me to be driven from my work, not my past. And what's interesting is what I'm finding now is that my work is part of my past and part of my path, and all of it's coming together right now with this project that I'm working on. But anyway, I don't even know how I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. You're perfect. You're a great interview.
Totally rambling.
No, you're good. But I mean, so do you agree that you can't let what has happened in your life define you, but you kind of have to accept it and
embrace it and love it and be like, yeah, that did happen, and it made me stronger and better and cooler. Then, like, nobody can take it away from you. Like, honestly, like, you know what was like this moment for me, like, in my career, just since we're like talking about career or whatever. Like, I was hired. I had this like homie that I met actually at the editing bay that I worked at for 3 years, Bowie Cobra Productions. Oh my God. And when I got the job at the studio, I just couldn't even believe it. I'd be like walking around the lot every day, like, yeah, what's up? I'm at Hollywood Center Studios.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has those moments.
It was like so big for me. Yeah. But anyway, and that's what I will say about careers, that they're really based on relationships, you know. And so in this particular instance, I had met this one dude, Mark Lucas, and he ended up, you know, growing in his career as well, where he started hiring stylists. And I remember I was flown one year, I was the head stylist for the BET Hip Hop Awards. And I was like, okay, I'm in Atlanta, right? And I'm like walking around at the award show, and I'm like, yeah, I'm the head stylist. I'm like the littlest white girl you've ever met.
In Atlanta.
Yeah. Like, and I'm so white.
Yeah, quite white.
And it was just, I just remember that moment being like, you don't know you don't even know what you're capable of. Because if you just keep moving forward despite anything, and you just like keep like living that dream in your mind, like, you could do anything. And if you can see it around you, like, I don't know, like, you can literally do anything possible. Even if you don't see it around you, you could just do it, because it's just the power of intention, you know. And I just never wanted to be a statistic. And I was surrounded by a lot of girls that found themselves in really bad places. And I don't know, that was just a magic moment. I mean, that BET hip hop moment was like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I am the littlest white girl in Atlanta as the head stylist.
How old were you when that happened?
Gosh, I was probably 29.
Wow, okay.
I don't know.
But you probably, I mean, you must have felt like you were on top of the world.
Well, I did.
But I also feel like you're one of those people who almost doesn't give yourself any credit. You're kind of like me. So you were like, yeah, this is cool for like 20 seconds. And
yeah,
I
was like, this is amazing. But then in my brain, I was like, but what does it really mean? Like, does it really mean anything? Like, it's important for these 2 hours or 3 hours while we're filming this live show. But when you walk away from it, like, that is something about my character, is that I do find that I often, I have had these like incredible, amazing experiences in my career, and these like mind-blowing moments, but I do always find myself back at like, but what are you going to do next? Like, that's great, Joey, but like, let's do something bigger. What's happening as I'm growing as a human being, in my mind and my spirit and my body, obviously I'm realizing that I really, and what I'm realizing is that I'm capable of working on a project that also gives back, which is Rue.
Yeah, I mean, well, I want to talk about your hotline, and I still have so many more questions still about, like, your childhood. So let me start first by asking,
Okay.
So did you go to high school and did you go to college?
Okay, so I went to high school. Well, first of all, I went to 22 schools total.
Wow.
And I moved around a lot. I found myself at the last group home, the last place that I lived. I actually stuck. And I remember I was like 15, and I remember that they offered me a foster home. And I just I don't know, I'd already started a new school again. And I had a new boyfriend, my high school sweetheart, who happened to be a skateboarder. And it was this moment of, I can just remember, so when you live in a group home, well, in my specific group home, it was 6 girls. It was a 4-bedroom house. So one bedroom is an office, and 3 bedrooms are for 2 girls to share a room. So I had finally found this house, where I felt safe. And I had this boyfriend that would come in literally, I was only allowed to leave my house for 30 minutes a day.
Why?
Because it's a group home, so you're highly restricted. You don't even get a phone. I had a literally in the kitchen was a payphone, put in a quarter payphone.
Wow. Wow.
So, having the stability of this great guy that would just what dude at 15 or 16 is going to come and sit in the living room of a group home
Not many guys.
Stare at the wall with you, right? It was a special, and by the way, that was the introduction to that skate community that really opened my eyes and my heart to reprogramming that family isn't about blood all the time. Family truly is about who puts himself in front of you and they say to you I got your back, I'm with you, we're gonna travel together on this path. Who knows how long the path is gonna last, but during this time they are with you. And that's really a gift when you can realize that those people are in front of you.
It seems like you're quite spiritual. Are you? Have you always been spiritual?
I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel my whole life is just a blessing. I can't even imagine how did all of these magic things happen for me? And I really truly believe it's because God is with me, and I'm really fortunate, and I also love all the way. So it's I am blessed with special relationships, but it's definitely I'm with them as well. It's a mutual love all the way.
And I mean, you seem to be such a genuine and authentic person, which I feel is not common in LA. And I have not even been here that long, and I already feel I can't even deal with everybody being so fake and unauthentic.
It's really true.
But I think that the people who are the most successful a lot of the times are the people who have not come from that much and who have really managed to follow their dreams, as cliche as that sounds, and follow their heart and become successful from that. So when you finished high school, and you said
I did go to high school.
Yeah.
I graduated. I was actually the speaker.
Wow, yeah,
I
spoke.
I spoke at my graduation. What is it called? Whatever.
Class president.
Yeah, whatever
kind of something
was,
that.
I had this whole speech. Yeah.
Wow. And then where'd you go after that?
Well, I graduated, but the way that the group home works is I left on my 18th birthday. My 18th birthday happened to fall after my graduation. I think I graduated somewhere in June. My 18th birthday was in July. And I literally moved out of my group home in with my boyfriend. That's pretty cliche.
Yeah. And then you didn't go to college.
Okay, so I tried. Okay, I definitely gave it
You tried.
You know what? I totally tried, man. I went, so Orange Coast College was the obvious college to go to. And I did try. I sat in those classes, and I sat there and I thought, you know what? I've been sitting in a house. I've been sitting and sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting. When you live in a group home, and you have to think about I also I'd been in also a children's home before that. It's all, and then there's so many other details. So I was just wait a second. I'm going to sit here in this college when I could just go out like and do what I know what I like. I had this innate quality, I guess, or this like vision where I was like, yo, I can't sit in this classroom. Like, I gotta go.
Yeah, you're kind of like the 1% that, that couldn't deal with that.
I know.
That's
I was
how
like,
I
this is not gonna work for me. And I very quickly was gone.
Do you think that college is necessary for most young people and importantly getting into this industry?
Gosh, I definitely don't want to be the person that says like, oh, you shouldn't go to school, because I absolutely see that there's benefit to school. I mean, I actually think that I could probably still enroll myself in school. Like, there might be some skill set that I want to learn, but I definitely think that school works for some people, and it's a I don't know, it's like some people need that regimen, like that daily, like do this, and they need that direction. But I mean, every human spirit is different. So, what works for one person, it's like tomatoes. Mm-hmm. Like what works for one person is going to work for the other person. For me, it felt like restrictive. Like for me, I needed to just get out there and go do what I needed to do and I was so hungry, and I just wanted to like experience as much as I could.
And you're right too. I mean, if you're in college and you don't think it's a fit for you, you can always take time off and then go back. But Did you meet anybody when you were in that, when you were in school for that period of time that...
I think that like by the way, like also when I got to LA, because when I went to LA originally, I thought I wanted to be an actress. And then when I would go to these auditions, and then again, I just felt like people were telling me what to do. And I guess I'm just a little bit of a rebel that way, where I was like, wait, what did you tell me? Like, what'd you say? Like, I just was not in the mindset to take direction. I needed to find my own direction. And, I don't know. What was your question?
If you met anybody in college.
Oh, no. So I wasn't even in the mindset to
do that.
You
were so passionate about
I was just like,
else.
Get me out of here. Yeah. And I just wanted to get to LA. Like, LA for me was like the Holy Land.
Yeah. So when you got here and you started, Britney was your first client, right?
Well, as styling, yeah.
As a stylist.
Well, not even styling. I was doing wardrobe for the dancers. So I'd be like under stage. Well, obviously, like Britney's changing area is with the dancers. It's like, it's under one stage. Mm-hmm. But my specific responsibility was with the dancers. And obviously, like, we became close. We spent a lot of time on the road, and we had some really magical trips. But yeah, like, I was focused on working with dancers and figuring out, like, first of all, there was 2 head stylists on that tour, these dudes, Kurt and Bart from New York. And I remember being around them and being like, these dudes are so talented, and they could just like look at a garment or look at something, and this is in the era of like everything was distressed and like ripped up and torn up and totally crazy.
Yeah.
It was a great time. By the way, like ripped up, torn up jeans, and then Kurt and Bart would come in with their ironing board and like their bedazzles and like iron on some rhinestones, right? Like they were so incredibly talented and creative. And it really, like, I soaked it up. And, they don't know my history. They don't know who I am. I'm just like a random girl who was hired to be on the tour to take care of their costumes. But under that sort of creative beauty, I was able to like soak up what they were doing and like figure out that was a direction that I wanted to take in my own life. Like, and I was working under a girl that hired me that became my partner later on in a company called Joey and T. And, we had a great run together as well. Like there's just been like so many magical moments that I can't even believe that it's all my life, kind of.
It's kind of interesting when you look back and you realize, but what you made your life become, what your mind led, what you started doing.
Literally from nothing, like literally from no parents, no, just like dreaming that you could do anything.
Yeah, it's rare that people even inspire me, and you're actually very, very, very inspiring to me, which is kind of hard to match up to if anybody who knows me. But so you didn't intern or anything. So you went straight to working with this major celebrity at the time. But did you have moments of self-doubt or times where you were like, I'm intimidated, or I feel like I don't know what this is going to become, or how am I going to make a living off of this?
I know this might sound strange, but I didn't really have self-doubt. I just really was like, this is what's up. And this is how we're rolling out. And this is what we're doing. And you're either with us or not with us. Like, I really have always been with the belief of like, ride or die. You're either with me or you're not. And I don't know, like, I'm a human being. Of course I have moments of like, I'm going to wake up and be like, I don't know, is it possible? Like, am I absolutely crazy? And most of the time that's yes. Yeah. I'm totally nuts, and it's totally possible. Like, anything's possible, man. Like, anything is possible. Like, anything.
When you stopped working, so you worked with her for how long?
Oh my God. By the way, we should talk about that, because you want to talk about self-doubt. Okay. Actually, yes, that's true. It does happen.
It does.
No.
Okay. Because I was like, please say that.
I'm totally human. No,
okay.
No. Actually, you're right. So when I got off the road with Britney, so when you start with a huge star, you just think you're always gonna roll deep like that. Like, oh no, I'm like straight up like we're good, right? And then you're not part of that camp anymore, right? Like, Britney has a new camp. Her management turned over like a whole new team, and I was like, well, shoot, like, really? Like, what does that mean exactly? And you have to start from scratch. And I had already, like, I was fortunate enough to sort of, like, already roll out Joey and T, but Joey and T hit a wall as well. And then I was really like, okay, hold on a second. So at the time I had an apartment in New York and an apartment in LA, and I booked a one-way ticket back to New York, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna be here for a minute, so it's a one-way ticket. Yeah. I'm probably not gonna leave my block. Might have a few cocktails at the little bar at the corner.
You gotta do it. That's what happened.
Yeah, like, no, I definitely hit that like moment of like, wait, what am I doing in my life right now? And because I honestly went into that partnership, so when the Britney thing like went awry, like, I was like, well, whatever, like, that's another girl's career, and her team took her in a different direction based on where she needed to go at that time. But when the Joey and T thing failed, it was like a real hard hit for me, where I was heartbroken because, you know, I literally like, well, it's my own fault, and that's a learning curve. Like, when homegirl was like, oh no, my family has lawyers, I was like, that's awesome, great. But that didn't mean that I was protected. But in my brain, I was like, no, we're both protected because, like I said, I'm all in. Like, if I'm in, I'm in. So I didn't ever think to protect my own, like, properties or whatever. So, like, when she called me into my office one day, we had offices, like, downtown Los Angeles on Spring Street. She was like, can we speak to you for a moment? And, of course, they called me into my own office. And she was like, so, our investor's going to pull out unless you leave the company. And I was like, what are you going to call it? Like, Ann T? And she was like, no, we own your name. You didn't license it to the company. And that was like that moment for me where I was like, damn, you're right. I
fucked up.
I fucked up.
Yeah. Wait, so what was Joey and T?
Joey and T was a skirt line that like blew up overnight. And we had just so Joey and T was what happened so remember I said that like, I had this like singer-songwriter boyfriend. Mm-hmm. His name was Joseph Arthur, and I took his art and I put it on fabric. So when I got to New York, I thought that like him and I were going to be like together, right? Like, I was like living in a fantasy. And he was like, yo girl, where are you staying? Of course I acted like I was prepared for that, but actually I was like, actually, I'm not sure. But I called our travel agency for tour, and she set me up in the hotel that we always stayed at on the Britney tour. And she gave me like the lowest rate you could imagine. Like, can you imagine that? I think that my room was $40 a night at the Paramount Hotel.
Wow.
Like, I think that she just like parted the waters for me. Again, that's just like a God thing. Like, for some reason on my path in my life, there's just been these moments of like, light that just shines and things are going to work out. So Tanya was my partner. She came to my hotel and she was like, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. She was like, my parents will invest in the company. Just let's change it to Joey and T. So then Joey and T was born. And when she came to me with an investment, I was like, oh my God. To me, it sounded like $1 million, but it wasn't. But in my mind, looking back, I could see why it seemed like it at the time. And we found great success together. We had our first fashion show. We woke up the next day and Paris Hilton walked in our show. And do you remember when Nicole Richie like flashed her boobs on a runway?
Maybe.
That's my runway.
Wow. So how did that go? What made that company the overnight success?
Well, when I got to LA, like I was like running around I was out everywhere. I was like running around with everybody. So those were all my friends. Like that's who I rolled out with. Like those were the girls that had my back. Like, so when I said, yo, I'm off tour, I'm going to do this fashion show. At the time, I don't know if you remember the company Von Dutch.
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember Christian Augier?
Yeah.
So Christian Augier pulled Tanya and I upstairs. Like he had a whole production facility upstairs from his shop on Melrose. And I don't remember how we got connected to him, but when we did, he was like, yo, you have a show in 2 weeks. You don't have anything. And we were like, yeah. And he was like, you're going to be the skirt girls. He basically created us. He basically was like, you guys are going to be the skirt girls. I'm going to handle all your production. Who's going to be in your show? And then, of course, I was like, well, dude, like Paris, Nikki, Nicole, Amy Osborne, Kimberly Stewart, like everybody just showed up for us. Like, by the way, without blinking, right? Like we had Ozzy Osbourne sitting front row at 9 a.m. I mean, it was in the main tent, so it wasn't like, but it was still Ozzy Osbourne at 9 a.m.
Yeah, so that guy just really believed in you then. He really put...
I think that like everybody just like, it goes, so I'll tell you this. So let's just cut through like, so Joey and T was hugely successful, but her and I as a partnership didn't work out. We separated, blah, blah, blah. I decided that I was going to continue styling. I literally left New York with my tail between my legs, came back to LA, and I was like, you know what? I called Baruch and I was like, yo, like start me from scratch. I know I'm going to have to work for free. And, I built it back up. I'd be on like midnight shoots with Viggo Mortensen. I'd be like doing like Andy Garcia was on a press tour. I just did everything. Like I shot everything. I remember being on this like one shoot with him where, oh my God, like that's the thing as a stylist, like details will drive you crazy. Like I remember on this one shoot, like I couldn't get his hem right. I was literally freaking out. And then when the cover came out, they cut him off at the knee and I was like, dude, I spent so much energy freaking out over that hemline and it was cropped. But, all that time in my heart, like I felt like I failed it as a designer and I just wanted to be like, no, I am a designer too. I'm not just a stylist. Like anybody can be a stylist. Actually, now I know that not everybody can be a stylist, but at that time I was like, no, I'm a designer. I needed to prove myself to myself. So every fashion shoot I would do, like I'd spend that money and then I'd go and like pay for like a pattern maker here and a pattern maker there. All of a sudden I had like a little bit of a sweatshop happening downstairs in my basement of the house that I was renting at the time, which I would have like 5 different roommates. Like I'd be like, oh no, you can rent out the hallway if you want. Oh, you're staying a week? Cool, I have a couch. That's going to be like $50 a night. Like, no, I was a total like couch hustler.
I was going to say, because how is a stylist like starting out? How do you even afford? I don't know anything about that.
You like hustle all the time. Yeah. And as it turned out, I became like kind of like a mad scientist, right? Like, so I literally had, I don't know, like 60 patterns in my basement at one time. And I don't know if you know who Davis Factor is. He owns Smashbox Cosmetics. Okay, yeah. And he also heads Smashbox Fashion Week, right, for LA. And he had caught wind that Joey Tierney was like in her basement with all her crazy patterns, and he like rolled over one day and he was like, Joey, what's going on here? And I was like, hey Davis, what's up? And he was like, what's going on here? Like Fashion Week launches in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks again with that deadline. And and he was like, we're gonna make, this is gonna be a show. You're gonna show in the main tent. And I was like, well, I don't even know how that's gonna happen. Like, I need an investor. And all of a sudden, an investor happened. Like, and then of course, right after the show, the stock market crashed. My investors were private bankers from New York, and that didn't happen either. C'est la vie. Anyway, in the moment of the show, I remember in the shower that morning, which is where I do most of my most important thinking. I was in the shower and I was like, you know what, God, like, I don't really know what's going to happen today, but I know like magic is going to happen. And that was in 2007. And I remember at that show, I had like Mickey and Kate Sumner walking in the show. They're Sting's daughters. And I had met them because I was in New York. I think it was People Magazine had hired me to like style like famous daughters or whatever. And that was a few years prior. And we had just stayed in touch. Again, it goes back to relationships. Like I keep relationships. Like when you meet somebody that's magic, like why let them go, right? Mm-hmm. So I held on to these girls, and I'd also held on to like Andy Garcia's daughters. And anyway, they all walked in this 2007 show. And I remember thinking in the morning before the show, I thought, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I know something like crazy is going to happen. And Kate and Mickey, their father's very good friends with Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin, I'm also friends with Dustin's son, Jake. But I mean, I wasn't like, hey, Jake, can you bring your dad to my fashion show? I would never do that. It's just, I would never do that. And there I see like Dustin Hoffman sitting front row at the show, and that was the magic. And he came backstage after the show and he whispered in my ear and he was like, listen, we were going to do an interview, and he was like, listen, they're going to ask me questions and you whisper in my ear and you tell me what to say. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. I'm just trying to like wrap this all together in my head right now. Wait, so you want me to tell you exactly what to say? And he was like, yeah. And it was like a magic special moment that I could have never planned. And I just literally, like, I just put all my love forth and did whatever was put in front of me that I felt like I could do. And that was the magic that happened. Cut to, like, I don't know, it might've been like a couple summers later. Jake and Dustin do this like 4th of July party in Malibu. And Dustin was like behind the bar, like making cocktails, like super amazing guy. And he remembered me and he was like, how's it going? And I was like, you know, fashion business is highs and lows. And he was like, but you wake up and it's all you think about, right? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, all I think about is clothes and fashion every day, all day long. But it's amazing that, you know, it's somebody else that when they're so passionate about their craft, and when they wake up, that's all they think about. And when you're that type of an individual, you recognize that in other people and you respect it in other people. So when you see somebody who is so dedicated to their craft and they love it, you love them. You know what I mean? Like, because you relate to them. You're like, yeah, no, I feel you, babe. Like, it's a rough time sometimes, you know?
Not many people can say that Dustin Hoffman, you know, whispered in their ear and basically really believed in you. So that's super cool. But I think, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that when you meet other people who have this kind of passion and drive, it's kind of surreal, because sometimes I feel like you kind of wonder, are there other, like, am I crazy? Am I so obsessed with this thing that I can't even explain that, you know, you consider your career? But I feel like you're always kind of reinventing yourself too.
100%. I mean, just ask Madonna. No,
yeah. You probably did already, so you can tell me. But I mean, how important is that to you? You know, reinventing yourself and kind of always putting the best new version of yourself forward, even when things are tough.
Literally, like, I think that that's what it is. I think that you just can't cry over spilt milk is really what it is. Like, you have to just keep pushing forward and, like, knowing that you're on a path and that there's hiccups everywhere. That nothing's smooth sailing. I mean, sure, there's like a moment of smooth sailing, and in this era, like, take a picture of it and post it on Instagram maybe, but like, it's not always that way. You know what I mean? Like, there's rough times, and it's only in those rough times that you really define yourself. You know what I mean? Because if you let that rough time get you down, this might sound super harsh, okay? Okay. I'm going to just tell you, like,
go for it.
My motto, okay? Diane Keaton said this. you deserve what you settle for. And if you settle for what you settle for, then that's you. That's your life. That's your world. Like and so live it up. But you deserve what you settle for in every way.
And as somebody who's styled so many celebrities, like you said something just now about social media. I mean, being behind the scenes, you know what that's like. But how much and how often do you see people kind of posting things on social media that aren't entirely what is going on in real life?
Okay. Social media is funny. Like, I honestly, like, sometimes it drives me nuts. It actually has made me a little, like, shy from social media because I know I've been around a long time. I've been in the business a long time, and I know who's really working. I know what people are doing, and I'm in the know in a lot of ways. And I see things, and I'm like, no, that's not true. That's not real. Come on now. And it has actually just it definitely makes me not want to post. It makes and I think about, like, there's so many politics involved, and it just makes me like a little like, dude, no.
It's funny that you said that, because that's what I find too, is I'll see things and I'm like, that's not what happened.
Yeah, like,
you're lying.
Down.
It's like you're lying.
You're totally full of it.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, I could have that app too, and I don't use it.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows you're using that app, and then they're going to see you in person. By the way, that's just like one angle. There's so many weird, fraudulent things about social media that make me not feel it all the way. There was like a pivotal point in my own personal social media that I was like, no, I'm not going to subscribe just this nonsense. But I know that it's a tool, and I know that I know it's important, and I get all that. And I post, and I'm present in part of it, but I do take a note. And if there's people that you look up to, and if you note them on social media, they're very few and far between that they post. They post when it's important, and they post when they have a message. They post when they're moved to post, but they're not like sitting there on their phone posting all the time and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't know.
And in this industry, I feel like everybody knows each other. So, I mean, and it's true. And even in other industries, though, it's kind of the same thing in terms of if you're posting something that is not completely authentic and real to who you are, somebody will catch on, and then that will just
And be careful, because people will literally, like, rip you apart.
Yeah.
They will. Like, if you're not being authentic, like, watch your back.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I also feel that stems from a place where people are very hungry right now, and everybody wants to, like, climb the ladder of, like, getting up there, or whatever that they think that they're climbing to. But you know what I'm saying. Like, it's like, no, you should watch your back, because you don't know, like, who you think you're climbing over. By the way, you don't know what their future is. And I've seen it many times where I'm like, by the way, personally, just me personally, I've had, I don't know, a handful of assistants through the years I've been doing what I do that are, like, amazingly talented, beautiful, like, social media bloggers now that, like, have huge followings, and they're doing great, and they're amazing in it. And there's also some that I'm like, what are you doing?
It's kind of survival of the fittest.
It is
too.
Survival of the fittest. It's so true. It's so true.
And it's stressful, but I mean, I guess if you can climb to the top and be successful in your field
and keep your
healthy way, exactly,
keep your integrity,
and not lose yourself.
Let me tell you, you have to keep your integrity, because at the end of the day, you can climb as high as you want, but you have to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of every day
and feel good about what you see.
And feel good and love yourself. And by the way, if you plan on being a parent along the way, like, you know, I see so many people posting crazy things, and I'm like, you know what? Give yourself a few years, and you're going to be a parent, and guess what? That lives on the internet, and your child's going to see that.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that's the parent you want to be, you know?
Kim Kardashian, we are talking to you. I am talking to you. That's what I think when I see your stuff.
You mean like when she's like naked? Wait, no, dude. My husband sent me a picture the other day of like her totally.
Yeah.
I think she blurred her nipples out, and I was like, "You're so obsessed." But he was just like in awe of like, "Are you kidding me?"
I mean, how is that even legal
You're
on the internet?
You're a parent. You are. And by the way, hold on. Not only are you a parent, because that's obvious, but you're also you're a person in the eye that kids are looking up to. Like girl.
Same with Kylie being pregnant. That's how I see it. I mean, you're supposed to be...
No, you're supposed to be like...
It's sickening.
Like take the role that you have, that you've been presented with. Like be an outstanding person. Like, show them how you should conduct yourself.
But that's the world we live in now, and people who are doing nothing are famous overnight.
It's so wrong. Anyway, okay.
No, it is.
I could
go
literally get like crazy right now.
Too.
Like, girl, pull it together.
It is my biggest pet peeve to see people who are not even passionate about anything yet famous overnight. But before I like freak out on that specific topic, tell me about your hat line. So you started a line. I'm wearing a hat right now. Joey bought me a hat, and it's so cute. And I'm upset. Like, I'm a beanie obsessed person. But how did you get into this line?
Okay, so this is just, first of all, it's been like very underground. Like, I've been kind of very quiet about it. I have a partner in New York that I work with. Her name is Orit. She's amazing. Actually, she's just the most incredible Israeli girl that you could ever meet. She's just this light. We met over 10 years ago, and we've just stayed friends. And my very best friend she had me out in New York with her, I don't know, a few months ago, because her husband plays in a band that was playing at the Global Citizens Festival in Central Park. And during that time, I was at my hotel one morning, and I, of course, got on Instagram, and I saw that my girl Orit was kicking it at the Lower East Side skate park. And I was like, yo, girl, where are you at? What are you doing? And she was like, hello. You know, she's super Israeli. She was like, hello, Joey, come meet me. And I was like, okay, well, I have to be uptown at like 4. So I definitely had like an hour that I could squeeze in and get downtown and whatever. Maybe I might have been a little panicked. But I was like, no, I think I do need to go sit at this skate park for a second. So I'm sitting there with her, and I looked around, man, and I was like, God, the skate community, these kids, they're not competitive with each other. They lift each other higher. And it just took me back to like when I was 15 living in a group home, and thinking back to my high school sweetheart that his entire community embraced me. You know, I was like a girl in a group home. It took me back to like the little girl that didn't have a family, that was like alone, and I was completely embraced by this community, like wholeheartedly, right? And I'm sitting there, this is just a few months ago. I'm sitting there at this skate park with Orit, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, I was so feverishly pursuing high fashion, and I still am. Like, I mean, that's my day job. I'm a fashion stylist, right? Like, that's my job. But I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm looking around, and I'm like, God, like, these kids, like, love each other. They're, like, high-fiving each other and supporting each other. And I'm not saying that, like, when you get into the high fashion community that they don't also support each other. Because, yeah, some personalities do support each other. But there's a lot of personalities that are competitive. And it becomes very, like, stressful. And it's not, like, I don't know. Like, it's definitely not, like, grass to grow in. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So I'm sitting there at the Lower East Side skate park, completely inspired, and I'm sitting with Orit, and I was like, yo, girl, like, why don't we do something really basic, like really simple, like let's just do some hats and let's give back to the community, because that is what I've really experienced, like just being like around the skate community, is that like they just support each other, they also lift each other higher. And I was like, I want to do something like that. And I was like, well, why don't we make a hat line? And Orit and I came up with this together. We were just like, let's do something that gives back, and let's just do 1 for 1, like one hat, and give a hat to the homeless. Like Tom's, which I know Blake. I've actually styled Blake. And so I actually was one of the first people that Blake sat in front of. He came to my office and was like, I have this idea. And that was many years ago. And I was like, that's an interesting platform. But I wasn't there yet because I was still so focused on like being a big time fashion stylist, you know, like that was what my goal was. And, you know, Ori and I were just talking, and we're like, well, let's do one for one. And then I was speaking to, so I'm still friends with, so when you live in a group home, they have programs where it's so it's like a big sister program, but the actual technical term is special friend. Okay. So my special friend, I'd owed her a call back for like about a month, and I finally returned her call, and I was like, hey, Judy, I just, you know, I'm working on this little hat line. I think I think it has legs. Like, I didn't really want to talk about it too much because we weren't really sure. And it was just sort of like a test. We were just like, well, let's just figure out our logo. Let's figure out the trademark office. Like there's very basic things that you need to do before you just like roll out a line. And she was like, Joey, why are you trying to give back to just like general homeless when you grew up in a children's home, and why aren't you working on keeping kids off the street? And I literally was like, tears in my eyes, like, because I just needed you to tell me this. Like I've been so focused on branding and like launching that I didn't think about, like, because sometimes when things are so close to you, and especially just me specifically, like my personality, like I don't like to like beat a dead horse on that particular topic. So I was thinking, let's just do something broader, you know? But of course I made one phone call to Orangewood, and I speak there periodically. I go and speak to the kids. They probably house over 2,000 kids a year between the ages of newborn to 18. So when I go there and I speak, it's quite overwhelming because I actually go to the physical location that I physically lived in. So there's maybe 100 kids there at a time, maybe. Anyway, it's very emotional. So I wasn't quite like putting those obvious pieces together, but when she said it, it just made so much sense. And so when I called my friend there that I've reconnected with, he was like, 100%, we're with you. And what's happened is it's not just a hat. Like, yeah, sure, it's a beanie. But Rue, for me, Rue in French's Street, and I really feel like my core human is on the streets. Like, and I'm so, I can remember living on the streets like yesterday. It's like vivid. And I can remember feeling hopeless and not knowing what to do. And so for me, and my partner actually has a beautiful story as well. But for me personally, Rue is about like, despite your immediate circumstances, you just hold on to your light inside of your heart, and you just keep moving forward, because nobody can keep you down but you. You know, like, you just do you, and you don't listen to anybody, because everybody's going to tell you no. Everybody's going to say, you can't do this, and no, you can't do that, and no, you can't do this. Okay, I'm going to just do a quick story. Do we have time for it?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to like my high school sweetheart for a moment, who was a skateboarder as well, and a beautiful human. Anyway, I was living in my group home at the time. I wasn't 18, which meant that I couldn't travel. But his name was Josh. He bought me a plane ticket to go to New York to see his family. I forgot why he bought that plane ticket or why that trip was happening. But at the time, the only way for me to get out of my group home was to have a job. So of course I had 3 jobs. Leave it to me, right? I was like, oh, wait, I'm not going to kick it at the group home all day. Like, I was like a hostess at this little like place called Vita France in South Coast Plaza Mall. I worked at Blockbuster Video. Like, and then I would like answer phones at this modeling agency in Irvine, right? I mean, but the hell was I thinking? I'm 5'4", but whatever. In my mind, I was like, no, you can be whatever you want to be. Kate Moss is a waif too. So anyway, Josh bought me a ticket to New York. And the group home and all the managers of the group home said, no, you're not going to go. You can't go. You're a ward of the court. You're not going to New York. And I was like, who's your boss? Like, even then, I was like, but who do you answer to? Because I know you're telling me no, but I'm actually going to go to New York. And they were like, well, my case manager, Bob Bird was his name. He was like, you're not going to go to New York, but I mean, if you want me, you're going to have a court date. And I was like, what do you mean I have to have a court date? They were like, well, you're going to have to go to court and you're going to have to take the system to court to go to New York. And I was like, so schedule the date. Like, fucking book it. Like, what's the problem? So, by the way, like, I got straight A's. I was in, like, every extracurricular activity in school that I could, anything that could keep me out of the group home. Because, quite frankly, the girls didn't like me there. Like, I was, by the way, like, you know, I mean, I know that there was other white girls there, but I was definitely, like, one of the only white girls. It was almost like, I don't know, I didn't always fit in. Whatever. I mean, I fit in, but I didn't always really fit in. Whatever. You know, we were all under the same roof, meaning I fit in because we were in the same place. But anyway, so let's go back to when they were like, no, you can't go to New York. And I was like, well, yes, I can. So they literally schedule a court date. I go to like a proper courtroom with a judge. The judge is like going through my school papers. He's like seeing that I have all these jobs. He sees that Josh already bought the ticket, and he was like, you have yourself a good time. And I went, and I was 17, a ward of the court, and flew to New York. I mean, listen, I didn't make any like huge accolades while I was there. Like the big movement was just accomplishing going, but it was just that moment where I was like, yeah, dude, just try it. Like, people might say no. And by the way, the judge might have said, no, you can't go. But he didn't. He said, you go, and girl, you do your thing. You know what I mean?
And I feel like you would have gone anyway, even if he said not to go.
Okay, well, you're probably right.
Probably right. But I mean, even so, I mean, you took a huge leap by going there and risking, I mean, anything that could have happened.
I mean, I just remember, like, when I was on the plane, I was like, yes. I mean, yes, exist yet.
But you must have felt empowered,
yeah,
like
I did,
a girl boss.
I did, and I did. I was just like, it's another moment where you're like, everything's gonna be okay, and it's those little gains that make you go, no, keep going, keep going. And by the way, there's a lot of no's and no's and no's on the other side, but there's so many yeses, and every yes makes you dream bigger, you know?
You're incredible. Where do you want to see your hat line, and also yourself, but more importantly, the line in, a year to 5 years?
Well, I have a son, and he's almost 2, so I see myself in the next 5 years, like, growing with him and, like, experiencing this amazing journey with him, because he is just the most magical child. Like, I look at him and I can't believe that he's my son. And my husband and I are really lucky because he's just so amazing. Like, it makes me cry sometimes because he's so special. So that's my number one, is my son. And my family is part of that. And as far as the hat line goes, I want Rue Limited I want it to be a movement. I want to have Rue hats like everywhere. Right now we're sold at one shop in New York called The Shop, DAHSHOP. So that's cool. It's like a little bicycle shop on the Lower East Side. It's kind of like a dope little spot to start out at, But I just want I want kids, because honestly, like, we're partnering with Orangewood, and I want these kids, when they get a hat, I want them to feel like, yeah, I'm here right now, but don't let this define me. I want them to know that, like, you can do anything you want, man. You can be the biggest the biggest light in the world, or you can't, or you can dim yourself so dark that nobody sees you. It's a choice and you make it. Like that's the thing about life and opportunity, is that you really have to choose to accept opportunity, because a lot of people get opportunities handed to them and they just don't take the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't see it. And I want when the kids get these hats, because it's 1 for 1, so every hat sold. So every time I send a box of hats to this children's home, well, first of all, I'm going to be going there and talking to them often. I just want them to be like, yes. I want them to get it and be like, yes, I can do this. And like, this is just a momentary lapse in time. Like, I'm just here for now. Like, and by the way, like, soak it up, because those are adults that are giving you their time to like help you. But the issue is, a lot of times when you're in that mental space, when you live in that home, and that's the thing that so I know, because I've gone back and I've gone on speaking engagements to the kids. Like, I know that they fight you. Like, they want to be like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Because they're angry and they're hurt and their hearts are full of pain because they're living in a bad situation. But like, I just want them to understand that, like, you can't tell me that I can't understand, because I've been exactly, literally, geographically, exactly where you're at. And it's a choice, man. Like do what you want. Like, live your life. Like, do not let your immediate circumstance define you. Like, live outside of the box and just be like a huge light. And by the way, if you can inspire other people along the way, do it. Do it, because that will be the most gratifying thing you can do.
I know exactly what you're talking about, with the feeling of going and talking to somebody and feeling like you can actually impact their life, and them being like, you can, and you're like, but I can't. I have a nonprofit on social media and mental health, and I go to these inner city schools, like kind of where I grew up, and I talk to them about body image and social media. I love you too. You're so sweet. And I know what you mean, and it's like, you do what you do, and you do what you do, even though it's stressful, probably, I assume, incredibly stressful to pay your bills and to live the kind of life you want to live, but also because it enables you to do what you want on the side, which is your side hustle, which is this company, which is your hat line, which is going and giving these engagements to these kids that you're probably not even paid to do.
No,
but you do it because,
yeah, no, I'm not paid for any of it.
No, but you do it because you're a true, genuine person who wants to change the world. And I cannot thank you enough, because there are not enough people out there who are willing to do that kind of work and share your story so honestly, like you have. So thank you so much. I don't think there's anything. I feel like I've covered your whole life story. You are probably the best interview I think that I've ever had on like 15 episodes of this podcast. So you are,
wow, thank you,
a story and a journey, and I think that you are a true inspiration for people to know what it's like to make your life what you want it to be. So where can we find you, even though you're not really on social media? You like kind of are, but where can we find you and your hats and your platforms?
Well, my handle is Joey Tierney, and my website is actually up again. And that's just joeytierney.com.
And where is any other stores we can find the hats?
Right now, we're just at DeShop, okay. And we're launching our website. It's probably going to go live in like 3 days.
Okay.
And you can buy it online, but right now you can call DeShop and they'll.
And that immediately, when you buy a hat, it gives back to
immediately.
Great.
I mean, and maybe more than one.
A little bit. Yeah.
Or maybe a little more.
But, oh my God. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
Me.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope you truly enjoyed this. This is my absolute favorite episode. So I think if you guys are listening, you're probably thinking the same thing. But make sure to check Joey out on social media and follow her incredible journey, and make this an episode that truly shows you that you can come from nothing and become whatever you want your life to be, because she's shown it. I've shown it. You can do whatever you want. So have an incredible rest of your week, and make sure to follow This Is Life Unfiltered on social media, as well as myself, which is at Alexa_Curtis. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.